Hello and welcome back to our U.S. History series here on Cerebri Learning. This week we'll be covering the War of 1812 and what caused it. It's the year 1809 and Europe is engulfed in the Napoleonic Wars. Currently it's the War of the Fifth Coalition. The United States, still a fledgling republic, had a largely trade-based economy and was a close trading partner with Napoleonic France. This upset the British, who saw it as aiding their enemy. They began restricting American trade through policies that searched and seized any ships bound for a French port, which upset many Americans as well as American businesses. These policies even led to the Embargo Act, which plunged the American economy into a depression in 1807. After the election of James Madison as president in 1808, he told Congress to prepare for war with Britain, which he saw as inevitable. Prospects of war were heightened after the election of a number of Southern war-hawk congressmen in 1812. Most in the North were opposed to the prospect of war. However, some in the South saw it as a second war for independence and were patriotic about it. The policies that prompted the war were repealed, however. It took a long time for the ship carrying the news to reach America, and by that time war had already been declared. Okay, now it's time for some trivia. Go ahead and pause the video if you need some more time. The answer to the question is B. The song was composed by Francis Scott Key after seeing a lone American flag flying after the siege of Fort McHenry in Baltimore. Now let's go back to the war. The name is a bit misleading as it continued into 1815, not just 1812. Much of the fighting happened in Detroit the first year, and later in that year the British took the city. The year also saw the U.S. invasion of British-held Canada. However, most of the U.S. military operations were failures, with the exception of the USS Constitution's naval defeat of the HMS Java. The next year saw Great Britain formally declare war back, and it saw British forces invade parts of Ohio and Maryland. It also saw the important ascension of future President Andrew Jackson to a general position. 1814 was the most eventful year of the war, as it saw Napoleon being exiled in Europe, and Great Britain beginning to turn its focus further to the war in the U.S. Some peace negotiations began in June of that year, but it wouldn't be until 1815 when those would come into fruition. August of 1814 saw the most well-known event of the war occur, the burning of Washington, D.C. Even the White House wasn't spared. A very well-known story from that event was when First Lady Dolly Madison rushed while it was burning to save a number of important artifacts, including a framed portrait of George Washington and even the Constitution. The city wasn't at all what it's like today. At the time it was a lot more small and strung out. Many former slaves even fought with the British, showing just how mistreated they were at the time. The next month also saw the bombardment of Fort McHenry and the drafting of the Treaty of Ghent, and the end to the fighting. However, it wasn't widely known to officers at the time, and multiple battles took place during the peace, prominently the Battle of New Orleans, which saw Andrew Jackson become something of a national folk hero. So why was the war important? Well, on the surface it wasn't really. No territory changed hands, and in the end it seemed like nothing materially changed. However, if it was important to the soul of the nation, as a number of events in the war buried their way into history. For example, it gave us our national anthem, and it made William Henry Harrison and Andrew Jackson into well-known figures who would someday become presidents. It's also important to remember that no one really won, but one group definitely lost. Native Americans who fought on both sides with promises of land and help weren't really given that, and many died fighting other tribes. So what can we learn from the war? Well, for one thing, we can learn about the importance of trade to American global interests. We can also learn about how diplomacy worked in the early 1800s and how information was conveyed back then. Finally, we can learn about how two prominent Americans gained fame in the war and how that influenced American politics in the decades to come. We here at Cerebri Learning would like to thank you for watching this video, and if you like this, check out our other videos, like our history series. Before this video, we did a video about the Louisiana Purchase, and the next part of the American History series will be about the Indian Removal Act and early westward expansion. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and be on the lookout for future series. Our full bibliography will also be in the description below, We've included some useful resources for those of you who want to learn more.